Here.
Here.
All right, we'll move right into roll call. I guess we're turning it over to you for a kind of a introduction to the budget. That's what we've got.
Okay, so I just want to preface it by saying that these are preliminary budget forms. The official budget forms were released on Friday, but after this had been submitted for the agenda. So we will revise. There will be no change between the proposed and the adopted, more just to maintain transparency because we have to give the public 10 days notice to review the budget. So we'll anticipate doing a revision earlier than December. September usually is the deadline, and that's just so that we can transfer into the official budget forms. Okay, so this is all preliminary numbers, estimated numbers, not on official budget forms. So we anticipate a decrease in our M&O fund of about $1 million, a decrease in capital of about 3.7, and then an increase in classroom site fund of about 333,000. For M&O, the biggest factors are the carryover. Right now, we're still finishing out fiscal year 24. Last year's carryover amount was $8.4 million. Right now, when I built the budget, I anticipated that we're going to spend everything that's been encumbered for the rest of this school year. It doesn't look like in past you guys have spent nearly that much, but right now that carryover is about 6.5. So almost $2 million from where we were last year. Again, that doesn't mean that that's where we're going to end. We don't anticipate spending all of that encumbered money, but that's what the biggest impact is.
Mr. Hayes, can you mute your line until you're ready?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry.
Another factor is, I'm sorry. And then another factor is our override amount. Again, this is based on estimated numbers. I used the student ADM from our May revision. Just so you know, that was about 3,911. ADM, remember, does not equal enrollment numbers. It is not student. It's their average daily membership. So that's not, it's not our enrollment number. And just from May, when you guys approved that revision, it's dropped to 3.902. So about 9 ADM drop. With us using current year numbers, it's going to fluctuate all the time. To put in perspective, in September of 2023, it was 3,994. So you can see from May to September, there was a significant drop. So this proposed budget is not based, I know Mr. Lavender in previous board meetings has projected an increase in student enrollment. This is based on what the final numbers were for fiscal year 24. Okay, so again, we use current year numbers, so it's going to change. And if we see that increase, then fantastic, we adjust and our limit increases to reflect that. We did receive more per student, about 2% increase this year. Went from about $4,900 to $5,013. We had some changes in our add-on money that we get for ELL students, special ed students, free and reduced students. So together, like I said, all of these factors, in 24, we had a one-time supplemental aid that we're not getting in fiscal year 25. That's going to be the impact for the capital fund this year. Again, that was $1.2 million that we received in 24. That was a one-time supplemental aid. So right off the bat, we're at a loss for that $1.2 million. Same thing with M&O. The carryover was about $2.5 million in capital last year. Right now, we sit about $900,000. So a significant drop, which I assume you guys, with all the capital purchases that went on this year, you would anticipate that. Again, that doesn't mean that that's going to be where we end. These are just estimates based on 100% of whatever's encumbered being spent out. That is not past practice. That is not a trend for you, but just coming on without, knowing what all of these amounts are set aside for. I just anticipated that it was going to be spent 100%. Classroom site fund, we received more per student this year. Again, it's based on prior year numbers. So that was an increase of, like I said, 333,000. I know it's a lot of information. Do you have any questions that I can answer?
When we're looking at the reduction of some of these funds, we're looking in the millions of dollars.
Mhm.
How, other than our money that we have set aside, 6 million something, do we have a way of, rather than depleting that fund, do we have other avenues that we can take that will help us overcome the deficit in funds that we're getting into the school?
Yes, I only review these because they're the three major funds, right? The funds that we spend the most out of. You have other funds that have budgeted funds or cash funds, and they can be utilized to offset some of these costs. Just for example, one of them is our Medicaid reimbursement fund. Once we get reimbursed for those Medicaid costs, they become M&O money. So I'm not sure what the dollar value is right now, but let's just say you had $1 million in there. That's essentially $1 million of M&O money. They can be utilized to offset some of these deficits in other funds. It just depends what fund, because there are some restrictions as to what can be purchased at different, but there's definitely a way. And so you guys understand as well, your actual like operating budget, it's fine, right? We're going to have to plan, and Mr. Lavender has already spoke to this about you guys, about projecting out and looking at our spending costs, 3-5 years out, to make sure that we don't get to a point where we're scrambling and we're in a negative balance going into a new year. So there's definitely, we've already talked about putting a spending projection plan into place. But as of right now, like I said, this is just me stepping in and seeing the black and white of what funds are in. Once I get fully, I don't. My official contract doesn't start till July 1, so I had asked to be able to participate and put together this budget. We'll be able to plan and project those spending so that we don't end up in a point where we're in a deficit for any funds.
So I know that in years past, we've had a comparison. I don't know if you were here yet or not, but we had a comparison on what our carryover is versus what some of the other school districts are. And I know at that time, we were a lot lower than where a lot of the school districts are. So my concern is if we keep going lower,
Mhm.
we're on a bad path for that. I'd like to kind of reevaluate that maybe and see where we need to be to make sure that our district stays strong. I get this year if we had certain expenses that we had to pay out, but I think creating a plan moving forward would be beneficial so that we know what does that 8 million look like versus, I mean, I know we're a smaller district compared to some of the districts, but, I guess percentage wise, how are we sitting?
Compared to, and just so to put in perspective, so the state used to limit our carryover amount, and we used to only be able to carry over 3%. When I came on looking at last year, Casa Grande High School District carried over a significant percent of carryover, right? And we've recently had to start doing some cash balance reports to the state, like that's part of the budget forms this year. So the state is starting to monitor those money. How much do you have left in your fund balances? What's the anticipated category they fall into, and what's the plan to use those? So there's definitely an amount that I agree with you, right? Like we're going to designate whether it's 6% or whatever, and we're going to plan to carry that over. It's just going to be really, like you said, reflective of what the costs are for that specific year. But we can absolutely put together a comparison plan and look at neighboring and like districts so that we can see where we fall in comparison to them.
Okay, yeah, I think that'd be great.
Mhm.
I've got 2 more questions.
Yes, sir.
for you. I've been hearing and reading some rumblings about school districts that are going to have to take back a considerable amount of money because of overtaxation.
Mhm.
How is that going to affect Casa Grande Union High School District? And do we have a committee that their main task is to see how we can reduce our footprint as far as spending is concerned, cost saving issues, because no matter what the budget is, there are always areas that people that are in the know can find that we can reduce our budget and spend the taxpayers' money more wisely.
Oh, I know that the article you're talking about is Maricopa County.
Mhm.
Just
Yep.
It's not.
It's not.
Okay.
Yep, it only affects, correct. It is just Maricopa County. I don't know if there is a current committee that monitors the spending or cost savings, anything to that.
If I could just jump in here, it's absolutely agree with Mr. Hunt in the sense of we have a set amount of budget that's what we're talking about here. We need to maximize what we're able to spend because the school has a number of needs, and it's one-time needs, it's ongoing needs, it's the future needs of taking a look down the road with innovation and all of that. We're given these funds and we need to maximize the utility of them. And, we were just talking ahead of time, taking a look at, transportation, bringing it in-house, keeping it out, food, bringing that back next year, put an RFP out there or RFQ, depending on how you want to go. I mean, there's a number of ways of cost savings, but that should be, good to have, conversations with the board members, but it's also, an internal committee to come to us and present, here's some cost savings things, ideas for moving forward. I'm totally in favor of that. I think that we should do that. Mr. Lavender?
Well, Mrs. Price is starting July 1st, and that's going to be one of her first tasks is to really go through budgets and what are we spending money on. It's been a difficult process through all of the transitions that we've had over the last couple of years and changes in, with Dr. Strom, Dr. Battle, myself, all of these things is to really get a grasp of what are we spending money on. And we continue to have right now high balances, encumbered funds as we head into the end of the year that we think most of them will go back on our books. Some things we've already done going into the year is I think I sent an email to all the board members about suspending out-of-state travel, unless it's grant funded. I think the only out-of-state travel that will come before you this year is our partnership with the White River School District in Washington. You're going to meet Dr. Harrison on the 22nd, I think it's the 22nd of July, for the brown bag lunch and talk about the PLC movement. He's willing to let us have some slots to go back up there again this year and bringing some key personnel who weren't able to go last year. We would grant fund that. We're not going to take out of M&O. And so these are the type of things we need to look at real hard on our uniform, replacing uniforms, and develop a schedule for that. And so I think through that, we're confident that we can really look and drive it and saving money. Because when you look at the percentage of what school districts in the state spend for salaries and benefits, about 86, 87%, we're in the high 70%. So what are we spending 6 to 8% of money on an M&O there that maybe other districts aren't really taking a hard look. And so I think you're going to see some significant changes when we come back next year, and we're using the encumbered funds and some of these, which is real complicated, really taking a look at and changing some of the way we operate more as a family would. If it's an encumbered fund, and what we've done is we said we may spend this amount of money, but we don't know if we will or not. And so when you do that, then throughout the year, some of that could get lost. But if you're going item by item, sometimes item by item in smaller items and looking at, is this really needed and stuff like that, there'll be some significant savings I'm sure we will find. One of the obvious, Mr. Wilkie, one of the obvious big disadvantages of going to privatize, there's three things school districts, if you're gonna take the plunge, it's difficult to go back. One is if you go privatize food service, 2 is transportation, and 3 is the 4-day week, because the costs don't change. And so to go back now and have to purchase all the school buses and things like that could be.
I absolutely understand that, but I think that we would
Right.
appreciate the cost benefit analysis in today's, taking a look at it today. It made sense back in the thing to shift over, but in today's thing with all the current costs and stuff, that taking a look at that.
We would have to factor
Yeah.
what it would cost to go back as well.
Oh, absolutely. It would be purchasing it. And I understand that, but just, I think it's just one of those exercises which
Yeah.
are necessary to take a look at those.
We
big
definitely
items.
can definitely give you a count of what we're paying and what it would probably cost us if, without the buses.
Right.
Yeah.
But what it would cost us in personnel to do it.
Mr. Hayes, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Mr. Hawks?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Good. Yep.
I guess continue, please.
That's all that I had as far as those 3 major funds. Like I did mention, these are preliminary forms, so they will change. We'll have to do them, resubmit them on official forms, budget forms, but that'll be part of a revision process.
If I could just interject one thing, I know the capital, you've noticed a significant change in capital. Part of that is us pushing some projects to get them done, so they're done for the first day of school, like the projectors that are going in every classroom, the screens, IFPs, and that project was about 1.3 million, am I correct?
Actually, not to just under.
Okay, so that's one project where we really pushed because we wanted it to be done for the first day of school. We could have held off to keep the budget carryover at $2 million. The other big project this year was the lights at $1.9 million. We could have kicked the can down the road and done $300,000-$400,000 of repair and still be where we are. So this year, because we knew we had a healthy balanced budget, because we knew, and some of that was the result of COVID funding, which is going away. It's going to change every school district and how we spend. We really wanted to get these projects done because it was in the best interest to get them done. We knew it. If you remember, when I presented some of the budget, I think I let you know the carryover at that time was estimated $100,000 to $200,000 for capital. But because there were money that we had allocated that we were projected to spend that we didn't spend, brought it back up to $900,000.
No. Again, the carryover.
Oh, the 3 curriculums.
Yeah.
Social studies, the Spanish, ELA. I mean, we took care of some really big needs this year. We won't have some of those needs next year, but we never know when a rainy day is going to happen. And we do have rainy day funds set aside in some of our cash accounts that could get us through a good storm.
Well, every organization needs to have a reserve fund that's healthy enough to take care of that rainy day, what happened moment. But this is money that comes into, and I'm very excited about the improvements that we're making based with that money. So I don't have a problem with the carryover going down. We need to use the money.
Right.
The money was said, we need this money. Let's put it towards the schools. Let's put it towards the kids, students. So let's use it, but use it in the most effective, efficient way possible to what we were talking about. We need to make sure that we're using the money, because carrying it over, why do we need that money? I mean, we need that reserve balance, but let's utilize the rest of that carry on so that it is minimized to a point where we can take care of business with that safety net, if you will. But the rest of the money goes right into the school district, right into the school, right into the recruitment and retaining of good teachers and technology and all that. So,
Mr. Bellick, isn't our projects this year with state facilities board about $2 million?
Yeah, we're looking at the boat controls at 2 sites, looking for Vista and also weatherization for Vista. So our percentages, which went from like 16%, now the S&P is, I guess, 17.4% now that we pay out of ours. So we're looking at around a couple $1 million, about $1 million.
But last year we did projects with them, the Union Roof and some of those projects. So again, things we needed to get done.
Right.
Yeah.
And at a significant savings because we got funding through Rouse Hardwork for the state facilities board.
And I would say that there's a lot of times I do go to the finance department. What happens is when we get a certain allotment to start the project, And I actually have a spreadsheet that I could actually share with you guys how SFP works and all the breakdowns of all the meetings that we go to and the dollars that we're pouring into. Of course, we gotta have asbestos testing done. So on one of those, like, weatherizations happen, there's like $25,000 in, checking for asbestos. You know, when we, say the roof project going on right now, we have to have, core samples pulled out of our roofing to make sure how deep we gotta get into it. That way we're just not putting a Band-Aid on. So then that costs us another 40,000. Then we encumbered about another 60, I believe, so we can get the drawings and everything done for the two control systems that are being put back and into Vista and Union. So a lot of those dollars I end up having to go because we don't have them. We don't have an allotment of money set aside for SFP. So it's either I'm burning through my capital budget to do these improvements or I'm asking for more money. So, and I don't know, I always go to them with my savings is like, do we want to spend 5 million out of our own pocket or do we want to spend 700,000 for one project? So then, of course, you're feeding me some more money so we can keep these projects rolling. At the end, we end up saving millions of dollars for the school. So,
Appreciate that. I would hope that this building was built, asbestos shouldn't be a big issue
no,
here.
Anytime we're doing any
Just
testing
testing.
or any remodels, because of course the asbestos comes from flooring, they can come from the tiles, they can come from, but there's predetermined dates and things like that. So we actually, for our safety and like for my team that's working in there, I always get asbestos testing done. So anything that's been done in an area in the realm that I've been director, we take care of that stuff.
Okay. Anything else? Just for clarification, the ADM is actually established, isn't it 100 days after the school year starts? Is that about right? Am I recollecting that correctly?
It's the average daily membership for the first 100th day of school. Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so we'll see that number fluctuate at that point in time.
I've got a question for you, Ralph. I'm guessing in the majority of our schools, we're still using fluorescent formatted lighting in the classrooms.
Yes, what we've been doing, I set a lot aside of about 10,000 to 15,000 per site. And what we do is that we go in and we retrofit LED. So we've been actually removing, what we started doing was all the exterior first. So now we've actually made our ways into classrooms, starting to do some of those, and then also like the business offices and things like that. But of course, those are really expensive. But what we've been doing is allotting a certain amount of capital every year so we can buy the new fixtures. If it's a 2x2, it's cheaper to buy the whole fixture versus the ballast and the bulb that goes on the 2x2 fixture. Right now we got I wouldn't say a contract, but the cheapest 2x2 LED light that we have is coming from CED and it's about $38 for that retro kit to get it for, say, put the ballast back in one light bulb, we're spending about $60 if we keep putting in the fluorescents that we have. So we've decided to remove and replace. And we're going, as far as once they go out, we'll replace and retro. If we have 5 or 6 in here, we'll retro this whole building. And then what we do is we keep the fluorescents and then we utilize them in another classroom or somewhere that's equal lumens for the, for that certain classroom, since we don't have the budget to come and rip everything out and redo it. So we won't just throw them away. We still have a purpose for them. So we continue to do it that way.
Are you looking at the dates on these ballasts as they're coming out for PCBs?
We haven't really looked at that. No.
What would it cost to do just go through and put LEDs in all the classrooms at one time?
Just classroom setting?
Yeah, just well, I mean, we'll start with the students, so yeah, classrooms.
Say classroom settings, I would say about 350,000.
Ralph, I would like to also mention to you, because this is my area of expertise in lighting, is that there are items out on the market and have been for quite some time that you can pull one fluorescent tube out and put an LED in They make them to where they're interchangeable and can use the same ballast, or you can remove the ballast and put the LED in on just the fluorescent tubes themselves, which is considerably cheaper, retrofitting it to that point, and it gives you LED that's going to give you the lifespan and the lumen output that you're looking for.
Yeah,
That's an avenue.
Yeah, we actually currently use those right now. We have those outside on our exterior under our solar panels. They're called ledras. So they're a multi, we can use with or without ballast. So on our first phase of it, we just put them in so we can save time. So once now that the ballast does go out, of course, it gives us an indicator flasher. So then we'll retro and pull those and we'll hardwire in-house. We don't ever, we don't get another company to do that. It's these simple work. So we end up doing it ourselves. We rent a lift and it saves us tons of money. So we're actually working on those now. We use, I think we purchased in the past, I want to say about 1,000 of those bulbs already. So some of those we're interchanging for those classrooms, but what we've done now is we're using some another type because we're able to change the wattage and also the brightness of it. So there are about 45 cents more per fixture per bulb. So we're using those that way because different classrooms have different settings. So when we're in like the ESS classrooms, special needs and stuff, some of the brighter lights will affect those. So we'll just turn those down instead of changing that whole fixture out. So we've gone to those as well.
So what percentage are we at of being complete right now as far as all these being replaced? 30%, 50%?
Interior or exterior? Exterior, on an exterior number, percentage wise, we're about 80%. Now that we did like all the stadium fields and stuff like that, there's a few fixtures like wall mount, sconces or things like that that haven't been done on the exterior, but they have been retroed as far as the LED bulb goes. So we will take out certain ballast out of those and then we'll buy a bulb. But there's a more cost efficient way of doing it as well. Some of those LED bulbs have shot up the roof of those, so we're looking at replacing those wall fixtures to make it more cost savings. So I would say that's the percentage there. In the classrooms, we're probably in the administration offices. I would say we're maybe 30%.
Complete. 30% complete. Okay.
So,
Do we project a time frame when we expect to have those finished? Because that's cost saving in the long run right there once we get those completed.
The difference is though just having the funding, right now I do that a lot for my capital budget and I use those, but say $50,000 motor goes out. I'll use that money for that motor versus because we gotta keep ACs in operation rolling versus the lighting still up there. I have to make that decision based on what's the emergencies on that. So
Thank you for that.
so you know as well, what we've been working on, and this is one of the biggest ones, is that when I started here, the emergency lighting were ripped out of all of Cache Canyon. So we've been going in, and last year part of the budget, we moved some dollars around and we bought all the emergency lighting kits for all the bottom floor at the horseshoe. This year, we're gonna start doing and purchasing for all the top tier of that. So that in case of emergencies, things go out, you got that backup that'll come on. And we've been working on a lot of exit lights, bug eyes. There's a huge number. I think if you revise or look at my capital budget, when I started, I handed over like $28 million in capital things that I see just walking through our campuses that we need to address. But some of these things are more of the important stuff that we need to do. We are working with the city, like the fire marshals and inspectors that come around and check all these stuff. So they gave us a deadline. We completed and finished that deadline. So the bottom half of Union is complete. Now we're starting to work on the top end, which will set a lot of budget.
Speak of the devil, huh?
We allotted some budget for that as well.
So I think that we would appreciate, as part of the discussion, it was about putting the plan together for the
Transition to LED.
Well, I mean, as part of the whole carryover conversation of identifying, prioritizing the projects on that, it doesn't hurt to have that as part of the conversation.
If I may, as Veronica comes in full time, our plan is to meet with Ralph and look at a plan and his projections and what these buildings need and the needs that he sees moving forward. I'm thankful that Veronica came in over when she did to help us get started with the budget. But as we move forward, we're going to have those and our goals and what we want looking forward as we move forward in the year.
Yeah, that's what I would like to see, prioritization of the whole thing. You know, I haven't yet been privy to that, but I would like to know if we have a list of what's highest on the priority that we need to get done within a certain period of time. And that would help us determine where we need to focus the dollars.
We have an old list, but it needs to be updated.
Mhm.
I'll tell you, like, prioritization always changes in our realm because the dollars change, you know, and right now in today's society, the cost of motors and the cost of different things that we need to operate on, they change drastically. Most of our quotes that we're getting right now are 10-day notice. So once we get those things, we're trying to flip and negotiate dollars and things like that and make sure that the district also is getting the best, you know, of both worlds. We're getting it done, plus we're actually saving that dollar versus getting gouged. So we do a lot of work and footwork to make sure that we, you know, for every penny, we can put it into another project, you know, so it's a huge process. I think if you've seen the spreadsheet we put together for just SFB, you would look at it and say, wow, how do they have time to do this? I mean, it takes a lot of time out here, but I believe, with what you guys are asking as well, it's worth the time, you know, for us.
Ralph, and I'm sure you're aware of this, but when you change over to LED, your savings and energy costs run around 70 to 80%. Your savings in replacement cost is radically reduced. So as these things are happening, some of that money that we have that's in our fund, the $6 million, we might be well advised to take a strong look at these classrooms and not only the amount of energy that we're using currently in these classrooms, but then on top of that, what we're going to save in energy dollars and in maintenance costs. These are things that it's just like we did on the football fields and baseball fields. The savings is going to be just absolutely horrendous, not only in maintenance costs, but in energy costs with far superior benefits. So I think it would be a wise decision or a wise point that we should take a serious look at in relationship to, instead of piecemealing
Get it done.
this, is just, we've got the extra funds. Let's take a serious look because this is going to start a savings, bam, that quick. As soon as that project is over, your savings start immediately.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We've kind of looked at
We
that.
do.
That's why we pushed the football stadium lights. So we did a lot of the calculations numbers. It was like about 78% cost savings in electricity on the use of our old fluorescents versus what we do now. In the classrooms, we're looking about 65 to 67% savings in the classrooms alone with LED.
Okay, this is,
So we'll have a good idea of what our budget is for this year for capital. What are the big projects we're going to need to do? We can bring this back by October
Yeah, that would be good.
and give you some recommendations on some projects for this year.
Okay.
We'll continue to light candles every day that neither one of our chillers go out in this hot heat.
Well,
okay.
we have to live like the public lives, right?
Mhm.
Sorry, sir?
Say we shouldn't live any better than the public, the taxpayer out there.
All right.
So-
All right. So just respectful of time here, is there any other last minute? Okay, wonderful. I will accept a motion. Just to clarify, it's July 9th, not July 8th, because July 8th is that Monday. So this
It
is
says
for,
9th on here.
I know, but
Oh.
I'm clarifying.
Okay.
So should it be the 8th?
Oh,
Okay,
it is?
so-
Okay, so this should say the 8th.
So yeah, I'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2025 as presented.
I'll second it.
With the July 8th change.
I'll second that.
We've got a motion and a second. Mary, please call for the vote.
Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. Hunt,
Yes.
Mr. Wilkie,
Yes.
Mrs. Harrington.
Yes.
And Mr. Hawk.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to personnel, Mr. Lavender.
I think there's just a few things just to be approved today. We recommend approval.
Any questions from the board? Comments? If not, I will accept a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second? I need a second.
I did.
Oh, sorry. All right, we have a motion and a second. Mary, any further discussion? Mary, please call for the vote.
Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. Hunt,
Yes.
Mr. Wilkie.
Yes.
Mrs. Harrington.
Yes.
And Mr. Hawk.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you all. That concludes today's business, and we will see you back here in July 8th. Thank you. Adjourned.
Thank you.
See ya.
Aye.
I know, I've got a 1 o'clock too, so mine is right around